Doctor Who. It's a programme that stands up for the little people and sticks it to the man. The Doctor is on the side of the rebels, oppressed workers against their alien overlords, and if the natives are revolting, well, the Doctor's never far behind. Ironically, the production of the programme was shaped, sometimes helped, sometimes hindered by industrial action. This is a story which begins in the early days of television, takes in a factory, the dreaming spires, and is all over by Christmas.
For the next programme, look ahead to tomorrow on BBC One.
In the 1960s, television was still a relatively new medium, and the unions were a powerful force shaping its development. There were unions for actors, journalists and electricians. The writers had a guild. Well, that sounded a bit fancier.
We had an alphabet soup in those days of union names. The National Association of Television, Theatre and Kinematographic Employees, NATKI. The Association of Broadcasting Staff, relatively mundane. The Association of Cinematograph and Television Technicians. And then, of course, we had the WTPU, as we used to call them, the Engineering, Electronic, Telecommunications and Plumbers Union.
We don't want trouble with the Space Stations Union, Doctor!
We had the jolly old clothes shop meant that you had to be a member of a union to work somewhere. The idea of the collective bargaining gave you advantages and rights, thus you must join the union. And that sort of led to a degree of conflict which was normal. To try and put it in that thing is it was a normal thing to have strikes.
Unions were keen, sometimes too keen, to ensure their members got a fair deal. If they suspected the management of dirty dealing, they would call a strike, withdrawing the labour of all their members.
Everybody out!
Working hours were tightly controlled, the most famous example of which is the rule that all filming in a BBC studio had to stop by 10 o'clock at night when the plugs were pulled, even in the middle of a scene.
The pressure to finish the filming by the 6:30 deadline or 10 o'clock deadline, there was no 10-second leeway to just finish the scene. It was just plugs out. It was extraordinary because it frequently meant that the take you wanted to complete never got seen by anyone.
I went over time. It always was, you know. We've got another 15, 20 shots to do and we're out of time, and the Tom, technical operation manager, would have to phone his boss, who resided in Reigate or somewhere, and say, hello, this is Studio 17 Lime Grove. I've got a Richard Martin who's run out of time, Doctor Who.
On a technical show like Doctor Who, at 1 minute to 10, they're usually just about to start a scene that's got enormous special effects. And therefore, the floor manager has to go around and ask all the union reps, all the heads of each department, and say, guys, do you mind if we carry on?
Everyone would go around and ask if people mind working late, if we would do, work till 10:30. And most of the time, they did agree to do that.
And sometimes they go, no, because if it's happened 2 or 3 days in a row, they justifiably feel, well, hang on, we've had time to sort all this out.
Eventually, people would get fed up if they were being asked too often. But that's just human nature.
As always, of course, in the film industry, if you call a quarter, you're loved because everybody is on another hour's overtime. If you go the hour, you're hated because they'd hope to have got home their wives by 20 past.
You still go out on a film shoot these days, and if you're running over, the first AD goes around and politely asks all the main crew whether they mind staying for another 10, 15 minutes. Usually everyone, of course, says yes, they're quite happy to.
The unions kept order on the studio floor and were quick to take offence, with terrible consequences if you were trying to make a demanding show on an even more demanding schedule. Early producer John Wiles recalls such a problem with William Hartnell's dresser.
One day I got a call from the studio to say that all the dressers had gone on strike. Bill had simply offended his dresser, who had then complained, and so the entire staff had walked out. And this was on the one day you had to get an episode recorded. So there were those kind of pressures all the time.
Mind you, it wasn't all bad news. In 1968, as students rioted on the streets of Paris, Patrick Troughton's final season actually benefited industrial action.
Over in France, they've got real problems, real riots, real strikes. Students are in the streets. Over here, lovely British way, we have a much more low-key version of this. And what that is ITV. What ITV were doing was relaunching themselves. They had all these new regional franchises. So the BBC thought, let's put Doctor Who on a bit earlier because we don't want to lose Patrick Troughton's what turned out to be his final season. The irony of this is the ITV autumn launch actually never happens.
In 1968, there was a major row in ITV with the industrial action and some blackouts.
So you end up with these cameras operated by management and things like that. So it actually looks a bit rubbish.
At the same time, Nigel Neal's experimental colour play, The Year of the Second Olympics, ran into trouble. According to the author's own account,
they started an electrician strike. The creatures wandering around among the actors where they would be trouble. So if the director tried to shoot stuff, they would be obstructing. In the end, the producer went to see the Director General, who said, get one of those people and throw him out. And stopped it.
The Nigel Neal story is actually quite interesting. I'm not convinced that it probably happened quite as he said.
The notion that a Director General would have issued such a strident and aggressive instruction is unthinkable, frankly. And the relations between unions and the management at the BBC were then, actually continue to be, constructed on an extremely gentlemanly basis. Occasionally, if there was a picket line outside a building, you'd find a member of the management team bringing down a tray of peas for pickets.
in its sixth year of production, Doctor Who was directly affected by the BBC's first merger dispute. As the corporation moved into colour television, the unions brought Television Centre to a halt with a series of lightning strikes.
The October Revolution, as my elder colleagues used to call it, would have been a result of the 30-year lag between salaries for TV people at the BBC and the salaries that were paid in the commercial sector by ITV.
While they were doing Spearhead from Space, which was the John Pertwee first story, just couldn't be done.
For them to suddenly come up and say, sorry, you can't do it, we're going to put it off, we've got the strike in the studio, because we can't move the cameras around.
To make colour television, of course, all the studios were kitted out with new equipment, new cameras. Everyone had to think a little bit harder about what they were doing here, there, and anywhere. So there was a lot of new training going on. And I think at the time, probably the BBC went, oh, you know what you're doing, you just point the camera and everything. The unions were going, actually, we're quite skilled technicians, and we need a bit of payment in recognition of the skill we've got.
It affected Doctor Who in far as we had to cancel the studio. And everybody was horrified, you know, we'd done a lot of work. And so I said, well, all right, down with it, we won't go in the studio. Give me a 16mm camera and a couple of cans of film and make it on location. That horrified everybody. As all the finance department said, you can't, it's going to cost a fortune. I said, it's not. We do it in just the same amount of time. We'll be finished in the can, ready to go, and it's in colour. We don't have to worry about damn colour coming up. And I think I sort of bullied them into it, but it was highly successful. I wanted to do the rest 16mm.
How interesting would the rest of, particularly I think season 7 of Doctor Who looked if it had been shot on film, if it actually had to go and shoot the Silurians in caves and shoot Inferno inside a drilling project, because it would have given it marvellous cinematic quality. But as it did, we only had Spearhead to look at that, which is due to a strike.
Could have been a lot worse. Monty Python was forced to record at the Golders Green Hippodrome for a few weeks. ITV was similarly hit, leading to some episodes of the major series, including Upstairs, Downstairs, being recorded in black and white instead of colour until a pay deal could be reached. In 1972, Britain's miners caused the first national strike in 50 years. Sudden power cuts meant many people never got to see the end of the Curse of Peladon or the beginning of the Sea Devils. In 1974, Doctor Who returned to the planet of Peladon. Ironically, its miners went on strike. Behind the scenes, the BBC was involved in a dispute of its own about overtime.
The producers' assistants, PAs, discover that people doing exactly the same job are paid different money. Pam discovers that Patricia is getting paid overtime and getting paid unsociable hours and all the little extra benefits that she's not getting. And the BBC say, tough.
The effectiveness of the PA strike came as a terrible shock to the BBC. They were 99% women. There was still a rather sexist attitude around at the time that, you know, the girls won't get grumpy.
With industrial action happening all around it, the monster of Peladon was lucky not to end up being made in black and white, which might have been a kindness given those weeks.
One of the jobs they do is involved in the actual recording of television programmes. So there's a swathe of programmes in the mid-70s on the BBC that are only recorded and transmitted in black and white. One of the programmes that should have been affected by this is The Monster of Peladon, which is all about strikes and all about workers' rights and everything.
The race was on to get John Pertwee out of the TARDIS and Tom Baker into it before all the producers' assistants went on strike. He really managed it. Only a stepladder got in the way.
If you watch Robot, you'll see in certain scenes a stepladder. It's like an extra. It's just sitting there. And it's actually not part of the story at all. It was put there just before the strike happened, the scene shifters strike. The strike was called so nobody could move this stepladder.
I'm not really kidding, this would work.
And so they had to sit down and find imaginative ways of writing the stepladder into the story. And there's just because the ladder was there and they couldn't move around it, so they had to use it.
It wasn't only the stepladder. Robot sets just wouldn't go away. Blue Peter was forced to present an edition from Unit HQ.
There was a strike one time when we were doing Blue Peter. And Biddy Baxter, strike or not, we're doing the programme. Lighting, haven't got any, it doesn't matter, we're still doing the programme. And the only set that was available for us was the Doctor Who set.
Hello. Well, no doubt you're a bit surprised to see us in the world of Doctor Who. Oh, we're a bit surprised too, I'll tell you.
As I'm sure you realise, we didn't actually arrive here in the TARDIS. We can't use our Blue Peter studio today, so we've had to borrow this one instead.
I remember watching this and being very excited, being told by Peter Purvis that they were actually on the set of a forthcoming Doctor Who that we hadn't seen yet.
Lost studio time meant the programme lingered unfinished for months.
Would you mind please booking Michael Kilgareth and Liz Staden for a full day in the studio on the 11th of October? If you remember, we didn't quite finish the damn thing.
Tom Baker's debut was completed as chaos descended on W12. First, the PAs walked out. Then, out of loyalty, many of the producers and directors followed. Picket lines surrounded Television Centre, and many programmes were shown in black and white or not at all. Once again, though, Doctor Who was aware. The Sea Devils replaced cricket, and instead of Wimbledon, there was a Dalek film.
If you want to organise industrial action and there is an expectation amongst your members that they'll see black screens and the famous apology caption, then the obvious targets to go for are live programmes.
One of the benefits of being a Doctor Who fan growing up in the 70s as a kid was the unexpected repeat moment.
Even showing repeats during a strike caused problems, with directors threatening industrial action unless they were paid repeat fees. Strikes about overtime, strikes about working hours, and even a strike for extra money whenever a time code was used to make editing easier. Management unions were at loggerheads.
Negative surplus, inflationary, spiral uncheckable, negative growth.
Inflation rocketed throughout the 1970s, and wages had a hard time keeping pace with the rising cost of living. But even the BBC was a bit surprised when, in 1977, the powerful ABS union demanded a 30% wage increase.
Which sounds optimistic now, but in the context of the 70s wasn't completely outrageous.
Can't make ends meet. Probably too many economists in government.
15% was as high as the BBC would go. So the ABS called its members out on strike, and as over half the BBC belonged, this was serious. Industrial action began on November the 19th, Saturday tea time to be precise. No sooner had episode 1 of Image of the Fenwell finished than BBC One went off the air. No Generation Game with Brucey, no Duchess of Duke Street, and no Two Ronnies. With studio space at a premium due to the industrial action, filming on The Invasion of Time was forced to relocate to a mental hospital, resulting in some very strange TARDIS interiors. The dispute dragged on through 1978, and Doctor Who didn't escape, as the show's producer reported.
We were unable to start rehearsals because of the union meeting. The industrial dispute continued. On Tuesday, we lost 3/4 of an hour of recording time and 1 1/4 hours on Wednesday. Thanks to the efficiency of the production team, we were, however, able to complete all our recording, with the exception of the TARDIS scenes.
The only problem was that these TARDIS scenes were the very end of the story and of the epic 26-part Key to Time series. The Doctor's defeat of the Black Guardian had to be hastily rescheduled, but as Christmas approached, it wasn't looking good for transmission. On Saturday, viewers were due to see the Doctor do battle with a giant squid, but on Friday, the BBC was still only running a single radio station playing light music. At the last minute, the BBC caved in, and the dispute was settled in time for the TV debut of The Sound of Music, and more importantly, The Power of Kroll.
They became these tyrannical figures. Most people who were around at the time recognised as something that described the training, as you said, being monstrous, but certainly something which had gone beyond their remit. The winter of discontent, when bodies were unburied and there were piles of rubbish in the street, is the background to what you've got here.
1979 did not begin auspiciously. Doctor Who began filming A Creature from the Pit at Ealing Studios. A shop steward was sacked for assault, and the resulting walkout meant that a day's filming was lost. Worse, after 20 years away from our screens, Professor Bernard Quatermass was coming out of retirement and onto ITV. The Doctor finally had a serious rival. The signs in the stars were bad, but for a while, 1979 was very much Doctor Who's year. The pay negotiations between ITV and its unions were going disastrously, and the entire channel went off the air at the end of August, not to return for months.
It used to flick over and, oh, it's still off. Look for it for a second and move back.
There is nothing on any ITV channel, which is great for the BBC, because unlike back in the 60s where they all just turned television off, this time they all turn over and they watch The City of Death.
Excellent. With nothing else on, Doctor Who's new season had 14 million viewers, and the audience just kept on growing.
Everyone says, City of Death is the most popular Doctor Who programme of all time. Strictly speaking, yes it is, but it is only because there is nothing on the other side.
Even better, the ITV strike meant that Professor Quatermass didn't go out with a bang.
The BBC had it all themselves for weeks. Quatermass had been massively advertised, and it looked as though they would possibly never show it at all. When the thing did stagger into life, it was only with a minuscule audience.
By October, ITV gave in, promising its staff pay rises of 45%, but the damage was done. So with more viewers than during Dalek Mania, this was shaping up to be the most triumphant Doctor Who season ever. Only
the strikes came back to the BBC.
In November 1979, Shada completed location filming with only a few union-related hiccups. But as it moved into the studio, the SBS union launched another pay dispute. The mood was tense. As producer Graham Williams wrote in a memo,
I was telephoned at 8:15 by our set designer as to why the studio had been locked and therefore unavailable. I was unable to contact anyone with the knowledge of why the studio had been locked. Whilst I understand the meetings were continuing late last night, my home telephone number is freely available, and I feel strongly, should this situation occur again, I would rather not discover it through the set designer.
So Doctor Who found themselves locked out of the studio, and suddenly Shada came to a grinding halt.
Bad news for Doctor Who fans, but let's put the programme in context. This was not regarded as high-grade television. It was a cheap pot burner, right, that filled a slot on Saturday evening and commanded a reasonable audience.
Graham Williams soon learnt that although the strike would be over by the start of December, no studio space would be available to finish it in time for the January transmission date.
Dear Lala, lunchtime today I heard the most heartbreaking news. Our story has not only been postponed, but cancelled, without any commitment to a rerun. You can guess my feelings. It seems such a shame.
This wouldn't have been regarded, in my view, by the BBC's High Command as a particularly symbolic decision. The dropping a run of Doctor Who's because it got disrupted by strike action was probably a straight economic decision on the basis that it was too expensive to remount the lost material, and therefore we'll just put something else in.
The interesting thing, of course, about Shada is that it's now gained sort of mythical status within Doctor Who fandom as a great love story. But actually, If it had existed, would it have quite the cachet that it currently has by not existing?
No doubt infuriated by the cancellation of Shada, the new Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher declared war on the trade unions.
What madness it is that winter after winter we have the great set-piece battles in which the powerful unions do so much damage. You might imagine that a 100% pay rise for everyone in the country would solve all our economic problems.
Pretty fed up with merchant unions anyway, hence Thatcher's power. And also the fact that it felt it couldn't go on like this.
Margaret Thatcher had an absolute obsession with the film and television unions. The only time she really met people from the TV sector was when she was doing some sort of broadcast, where we had deliberately overcrewed because it was regarded as something that couldn't go wrong, and therefore you threw bodies at it. And this, of course, gave her a completely false impression that the industry was crawling with overstaffing.
This hatred that Thatcher had of the unions created quite a climate of fear at the BBC. But if you're seen as a political agitator or someone that Margaret Thatcher was unlikely to be particularly fond of, you had this little Christmas tree stamped on your personal file. I was very gratified that I have 2 Christmas trees stamped on my personal file, which means that she must really have hated me.
As Doctor Who entered the 1980s, relations with the unions were little better. Warrior's Gate had very few sets, but that didn't stop production being disrupted by Les Dawson.
There were many examples of small demarcation disputes. One that became quite celebrated was the Les Dawson door incident.
Les Dawson walking through a glass door. The door is provided by one group of people, the glass is provided by another group of people. On the day of filming, one of those groups of people wasn't there, so the other one did the door and the glass. Boom.
The different departments were very protective about their different roles.
I'm by nature a sort of helpful person. So if a prop is in the wrong place or your chair is, not facing the right way and someone says, oh, well, we need to adjust that chair, the normal thing to do would be just to adjust your chair. And I learned very quickly that I needed to stop.
If the prop voice likes you, they just catch your eye and go, we'll do that, sir.
If you adjusted your hair or adjusted your chair or moved a prop, then you risked the union actually saying all out because you'd just taken someone's job.
Walk off. That was it. Nothing would go on.
In Doctor Who terms, Warrior's Gate was affected by this. It actually lost its entire first filming block, which probably didn't do director Paul Joyce's state of mind a great deal of good, really.
Due to the recent industrial action, the 2 studio sessions ended up only a week apart, which resulted in Paul being 1 day short. I was not satisfied with the preparation or execution of the studio sessions. Had it not been for the magic cooperation involved, the show would not have been completed.
For a while, things were quieter. Scenes were scrapped as a result of an electrician strike on Black Orchid, but again, visitation was actually improved by industrial action. They were filming under the Heathrow flight path. There was an air traffic controller's strike, so it was blissfully peaceful. Then, as Doctor Who entered its 20th year, chaos.
There's a very powerful electrician strike at the BBC, and this has a huge effect on a lot of programmes being made. One of these was Enlightenment. Power. It lost an entire studio block, and then with everybody coming in from different shows all wanting studio space at TV Centre, the decision was made that the very last story of season 20, Warhead by Eric Stewart, a big Dalek story, was in fact cancelled. It was scrapped. Warhead became Resurrection of the Daleks, which went out in season 21. It'd be fascinating to know how different Warhead was, because so much of Resurrection of the Daleks is about building up towards Tegan leaving. I think we were cheated out of potentially quite a different, interesting story in Warhead.
The following year, as Peter Davison was about to regenerate, the ABS went on strike yet again. His final studio sessions were lost.
The only year that I booked a Christmas holiday, we did have the unions walk out on strike, and so my contract actually got moved an extra 2 weeks longer, which meant the flight I booked I lost.
Then a tough decision for producer John Nathan Turner, whether to hurriedly record Colin Baker's debut or scrap the twin dilemma.
The creature that finally defeated the broadcast unions in the mid-80s, and they've never been the same since. Was Roland Rat over on TVAM?
The dispute actually began because the company was attempting to send out a one-camera crew without the full complement of staff that were written into the union agreement. And they kept the station afloat, which became their main priority, by dragging whoever they could find working in offices and down in the basement and in cubby holes to go and stand behind cameras and attempt to operate sound desks, sound mixers, and to keep the show on the road.
I do remember there seemed to be only about 2 people and this puppet in there.
They resorted to dragging in bizarre puppets and hysterically funny weather people and all the other oddities that they had to put on screen to keep the station going.
I remember the rise of Roland Rat. The fact they had a hit single, I think it was called, oh, I can remember, Rat Scratching. I'm slightly ashamed of that.
Did Roland Rat kill the unions? No. Did the TVAM episode leave a scar on the collective memory of the unions in the industry? I think it's fair to say yes.
Had Roland Rat defeated the unions? Well, certainly Sylvester McCoy's time escaped serious trouble. A missed rehearsal here, a rescheduled filming day there. With a bit of luck, Sylvester McCoy's last broadcast story, Survival, even finished filming early, missing one final pay strike by just 20 minutes. Did the unions have new battles to fight, or were changes to the way television was being produced diminishing the conflicts?
3 or 4 things changed at the end of the 80s. We lost the closed shop in ITV. Under government pressure, the BBC got bolder but poorer, and that led to a change in industrial relations.
Because suddenly they didn't have anyone to protect. Suddenly there were no staff jobs. Everyone was on short-term contracts, or they were being brought in from outside as freelancers.
Television is produced differently these days, but in recent times there have been echoes of the past. Rising inflation, cuts to programme budgets, unions balloting for strike action. They're more about job cuts than pay rises. And has even the doctor fallen on hard times?
I'm a doctor. I work in a shop now, here to help.